behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. 2 Ezra 16:19. I want to start off by giving our praises, glory, and honor to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham Rakakwadash, with all thanks to our Heavenly Father, in the name of His only begotten Son, through the Holy Spirit, thanking Him for another day, another breath of life, another opportunity to blow the trumpet in Zion. Double honors to the elders, apostles, and bishops of Great Millstone, and Yahawah willing, this lesson will be edifying, relevant unto salvation for the hopeful elect. And the title of this lesson is Scourges for Amendment. Scourges for Amendment. And I know I've gone into this bird flu situation a few times already, but as more time goes on and we are tracking this situation, this seems like an opportunity that's too good for the wicked elite to pass up, okay? And like they say, they never want to let a good crisis go to waste, because you have opportunities to do things that under normal circumstance you would not be able to do. 2 Corinthians 2:11 says that we should not be ignorant of Satan's devices. And this scourge, which is going to combine famine and plague, is quite interesting indeed. All right? You're going to see later on in this video some news clips that show that they are culling millions of birds, whether they be chickens, turkeys, ducks, even ostriches are being culled right now because of this supposed threat that they're calling bird flu. Even before this thing goes mainstream, as it were, okay? We know that other animals are affected. You're also going to see that cats are affected. Cows are affected. And the way they are saying this thing is spreading is through the migration of wild birds. So they have the perfect vector of dissemination to say, well, wild birds are pooping and the poop is contaminating the grass that the cows eat or the birds eat or whatever the case may be. So this thing can spread wherever there are wild birds. So wherever humanity resides on this planet, guess what? There are wild birds. And who's going to be able to argue with them against this wild bird poop contamination theory, when they are the ones who are controlling the PCR tests and everything else? You see? So they are going to use this as an opportunity to shut down the farms, severely reduce animal husbandry and the quantity of meat, dairy, and eggs that are going to be available, in order to drastically increase the prices while lowering the availability. So this seems like an opportunity that is too good to pass up for these wicked elite, knowing that they want to depopulate, knowing that they want to implement a digital vaccine passport, and all these other things that are on the horizon. Okay, so we are blowing the trumpet, even though some might be tired of hearing it. All right? The title of this lesson is Scourges for Amendment. This is 2 Ezra chapter 16, verse 14. Behold, the plagues are sent, and shall not return again until they come upon the earth. The fire is kindled, and shall not be put out till it consume the foundation of the earth. Like as an arrow which is shot of a mighty archer returneth not backward, even so the plagues that shall be sent upon earth shall not return again. Woe is me, woe is me. Who will deliver me in those days? the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? Behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. But for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. Behold, victuals shall be good, cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. So yeah, victuals, I think is the way that word is pronounced. But that just means food is going to be cheap upon earth like it is now, relatively, right? Compared to what it's going to be, particularly protein. Okay? And people are going to think everything is fine, but evils are growing upon the earth. What are these evils? These evils are artificially induced food shortages. Whether it be through Bill Gates buying up lots of farmland and closing down the farms, whether it be through these mysterious fires that are burning through poultry centers, animals getting sick and dying, or whether it be through animals testing positive for some made up disease and having to be culled. Because at this point, with all these animals being culled, it's not so much that the disease that they call in bird flu is dangerous, because a few animals might get sick on a farm or whatever the case may be, but they go ahead and kill all the animals when just a few animals were sick and probably would have recovered with the proper care. You see that? Not to even mention those fires in California, which is going to severely dent the food supply in the nation because most of the dairy comes from California. A lot of your fruits and vegetables also, and your poultry comes from California. Okay? And then add to that now the unavailability of people to work in those farms, work in food processing, because you're steady deporting all the migrants, and you have a perfect recipe for famine. So they are going to use this thing as a great opportunity to reduce the caloric intake of the population. I even saw some information come out regarding, and I'll probably do a lesson on it later on, Yahawah willing, but where they have isolated the region of the brain in mice, but it also means in humans, where appetite is controlled. And by stimulating it, they can either make people a lot less hungry or increase people's appetite by up to 100 or 200%. Can you imagine that? It's just wickedness all around with these Edomites who are in charge of this planet. That's why they have to go. And all of y'all who think that they don't have to go, you have to go too because you don't understand. It goes on in verse 22 of 2nd Ezra 16. For many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine. You can probably hear my chickens back there cackling right now because I got some fat hens and some noisy roosters. They're healthy. They don't have no flu. But if the government decides that they're going to go and test all the farms and test all the animals with those fake PCR tests, they could easily say that they found whatever they found, you know, and then they just say you have to kill all your birds. Or maybe they might go ahead and kill them themselves. You see? But it says, for many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy, and the dead shall be cast out as dung, and there shall be no man to comfort them, for the earth shall be wasted, and the cities shall be cast down. And it goes on. Okay? So what can you do about this? Well, first of all, forget about anything else other than putting your faith and trust in Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Because Psalms 37:18 tells us that his elect are going to be satisfied in famine. And 2nd Ezra chapter 2, maybe from verse 26 on down, says that others shall weep, but his elect will have provision in that time. 1 Kings chapter 17, I think it is, recorded the fact that Elijah was fed by ravens. All right, so we're going to have faith in the Most High. Okay? Now, if you have the means to buy excess meat, excess freezer space, and you have gas power generators and solar power generators to keep the freezer going, should there be a power outage, or you have the resources to procure freeze-dried meats and egg powders and milk powder, then go ahead and stock up. Especially those of you all who have little infants in these times. Remember a few years ago when they had that infant formula shortage? Well, guess what? All of that is coming back. So you're hearing it here first. Go and buy your Infamil and whatever other infant formula you need, because all of that is going to be going down the drain when these dairy farms are shut down. You're hearing it here first. If you have the means to stock up, then stock up. There's no harm in that. But ultimately, Yahawah, Yahawashi is going to have to be with us throughout this famine that's coming on the scene. And we've been warning people about this famine for a long time, you know. Yes, man, I at least been warning people for 20 years about what's coming as far as famine is concerned. You check it out. There's a saying that goes, what you won't do, you'll do for love. But what you won't do, you will do for food. That's the ultimate control mechanism in people. All right? You get people to do anything for food when they don't have nowhere else to get it. And that's what the government is going to do. That's the whole reason why Yahawah is bringing about a famine. So he could separate those who don't have faith from his elect. You understand? But the title of this lesson is Scourges for Amendment. And now I'm going to leave you with these videos of news articles that are letting you know what's coming down the pike. Alright? So we're giving our praises, glory, and honor to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Now check these out.
More than 100,000 birds had to be euthanized at a duck farm on Long Island. This after they found a case of bird flu and were worried that it could spread rapidly.
All right, Fox 5's Jody Goldberg takes a closer look at the protocols in these kinds of situations and what can be done to prevent further spread.
Dozens dressed in hazmat suits walked out of Crescent Duck Farm in Aquabog after the oldest duck farm on Long Island confirmed a case of bird flu.
Unfortunately, in a situation like this, you basically have to start over again.
Start over after the 100-year-old farm that's now under quarantine had to euthanize its entire flock of more than 100,000 birds to prevent further spread.
The disease is carried by wild birds, and all it takes is one of them defecating into an animal pen. And if it lands on the feed or it lands on the ground, it can then spread throughout your flock.
Suffolk County officials are now tasked with talking to and testing workers that have been exposed.
We're going to test them for H5N1 and also offer what they call prophylactic measures. In this case, it would be Tamiflu.
This local outbreak comes just weeks after a person from Louisiana became the first in the U.S. to die from the H5N1 virus. So far, there has been no reported person-to-person spread.
We're not so much worried about infecting the public as honestly we are infecting our birds.
Now, according to the CDC, there have been more than 1,400 outbreaks here in the United States since 2022 that have impacted over 136 million birds. And here in New York, 28 flocks, including this one, have tested positive.
A dime-sized piece of material, usually fecal material, can spread to thousands of birds.
To prevent the spread, experts say take down bird feeders and don't free range your backyard birds to limit interaction between wild birds and backyard poultry. Animal advocates have concerns if the virus were to mutate.
When avian influenza has infected humans, it has about a 50% morbidity rate, and COVID has a 0.5% morbidity rate.
As of now, the future of Long Island's last standing duck farm remains uncertain. In Aquabog, Long Island, Jody Goldberg, Fox 5 News.
This is the worst case scenario we do. They want them all destroyed by February 1st.
The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has ordered the destruction of Universal Ostrich Farm's entire herd after multiple birds contracted the avian flu.
This decision is not right, and I'm not saying that just because we want to keep our animals. I'm sure the poultry farms wanted to keep their animals. I understand that. We are different.
The owners say ostriches react differently to the virus than traditional poultry and shouldn't be grouped in the same category. However, in a letter obtained by Global News, the CFIA says ostrich are considered poultry and that all birds within the infected premise must be destroyed. And in a statement, they said there is currently no conclusive evidence to suggest that ostriches would have more immunity to the virus compared to other resistant species.
I don't know why we would be killing 400 ostrich. That killing them will make zero difference to anything.
The owners transitioned the farm into a scientific antibody program around the pandemic to study how to mass produce antibodies against the avian flu.
What we're trying to do is offer the government a solution, a resolution to this. We're trying to say, hey, we are an antibody company. We've already been working on building antibodies with these ostrich.
All of the farm's 400 plus flock will have to be destroyed and discarded of by February 1st, leading to what they say will mean losing years of research and unique ostrich DNA, something almost impossible to rebuild. Victoria Famia, Global News.
The CDC says a genetic analysis indicated that a mutation of the virus was discovered inside a Louisiana patient.
People are not going to be locked down again. The government was so heavy-handed, individual liberty was just completely ignored. And that's going to be very detrimental because you've lost the trust in public health.
Health experts say the genetic analysis from the Louisiana patient indicates the virus evolved in a way that can make it more transmissible to humans.
And this is why it's so concerning, because it's going to be a scenario that will make COVID look like a cakewalk. But what happens when we start seeing young, healthy people have very severe illness, very rapid death? It's going to have significant impacts to our society.
World War III is already happening.
This is a house of cards, and it is in the process of collapsing right now.
You're going to see an economic crash, the likes of which we've never seen.
There are new concerns tonight as bird flu continues to spread. A week ago, California declared a state of emergency after a mass infection of dairy cattle there. In Washington state, where cases have been on the rise, more than half of the big cats at one wildlife sanctuary died after contracting the virus. Even more concerning, it is unclear exactly how they got bird flu. CNN's Randy Kay has the story.
That's Thumper, a 10-year-old Eurasian lynx who used to love to play and scratch the decks high above the foliage. The video from August was taken at the Wild Felid Advocacy Center of Washington, a big cat sanctuary where Thumper lived. Thumper is one of 20 cats from the sanctuary who died in recent weeks from bird flu.
We thought we were doing everything we could to avoid anything like this from happening. The cats are pretty well split up into 30 by 40 foot habitats.
The sanctuary's director and co-founder, Mark Matthews, says the cats' enclosures are spread out among 5 acres. He told me their first cat got sick on November 22nd. The 17-year-old cougar named Hannah, Wyoming, stopped eating and died the next day. A day later, this African caracal named Crackle also got sick and died. Others they lost included this cougar named Holly and Tabby, a Bengal tiger.
Tabby the tiger was a very fun, loving tiger. She had a super personality. Every time I came up, she'd come running to meet me.
This Bengal cat, Pebbles, also succumbed to bird flu, as well as Mouse, a Jeffrey cat. Only 17 of the 37 cats once housed here are left. Nico, an African serval, is still in critical condition, fighting to regain the use of his back legs.
Feeling devastated, kind of in shock, and just taking really good care of those ones who are recovering.
The disease spread rapidly, and they still don't know how exactly the bird flu entered their facility.
Initially, we thought it was for bird droppings from waterfowl. We are in a flight pattern for migratory birds, so I don't know if that's part of the equation or not. So we really don't know at this time if it was food related or not.
Although we don't know exactly how it got there, it just makes sense that it's likely due to migratory birds, because we know bird flu is transmitted through the migratory bird population.
Dr. Dean Blumberg is an infectious disease expert at UC Davis.
It's spread through the bird's saliva, the feces, the urine, and so you really can't protect against that in the natural environment.
The staff at the sanctuary are working tirelessly to disinfect the habitats, while also protecting themselves from getting sick. They're wearing PPE, including N95 masks, and doing foot baths when they enter and leave.
The virus may mutate and become more easily transmitted person to person. So the more this virus circulates, and specifically co-circulates with human strains, that's going to increase the odds of the virus evolving to more human-to-human transmission. And that of course, could signal another pandemic.
Randy, I understand there's also concern now about house cats. What are you learning?
Yeah, Jim, there's not only the big cats who are at risk, but now it seems that the house cats are at risk as well. This is after a house cat in Oregon died after eating a pet product that was later found to be infected with or tested positive for bird flu. So now this Portland, Oregon-based pet food company is issuing a nationwide voluntary recall. The name of the company is Northwest Naturals, and the recall is for a 2-pound feline turkey recipe. That's one of their raw frozen recipes. And I should note that this product was distributed all over the United States, across this country. It was also distributed in parts of Canada, including British Columbia. So there's a lot of concern, Jim, for pet owners, certainly cat owners, about how this might spread. Can their cat get it? Can it spread to humans? So many questions for pet owners. I also want to note, Jim, that sanctuary we reported on is closed for now to the public, but they are hoping to reopen again in March.
Randy Kaye, thanks so much. Joining me now, Director for the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota, the epidemiologist Michael Osterholm. Good to speak to you again, sir. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, Jim. Good to be with you.
As far as we know at this point, bird flu has not made the jump of going from human to human. People have contracted the virus from animals. I wonder how far away we are from that possibility. Are we just, in effect, one mutation away from human to human transmission?
Well, Jim, let me just be really clear here that, this is not rocket science, this flu work. It's actually a lot more complicated. We don't know. And anyone that tells you they do know, you have to be very careful. What we do know is, of course, flu viruses continue to change. They mutate. This particular H5N1 virus has been doing this really since 1996, when it first showed up in China, caused an outbreak in Hong Kong in 97. And what most people don't realize is this was killing cats way back in 2003 and 4. One of the zoos in Thailand lost over 100 large cats because they were fed culled poultry that had died from H5N1. And so we've been seeing this for a long time in cats. What's changed, though, is in the last 2 years, a new strain of this H5N1 has emerged that has caused a lot of additional infections in mammal species that we'd not seen this before, over 50. And of course, as you're well aware, the dairy side of the house now has also contributed substantially to this, which we had never seen before. So we don't know where we're at right now with this virus. There will be more influenza pandemics. Is this the one that's going to cause it? We don't know.
That's the open question, of course. I wonder, and I remember I've covered previous H1N1 outbreaks years ago. Those did not develop into a pandemic, thankfully. I wonder over what time period might such a thing happen given where we are now? Is it a matter of weeks, months, years, or does that fall into the we don't know category as well?
We don't know category is really the operative word for today. But let me just point out that we are doing more and more with this virus as a result of human activity, such as what we're seeing in dairy cattle right now, bringing together this virus. And we only learned this past year that the cow udder actually has receptor sites, or the ability for both bird viruses and human viruses to grow in that udder. Why is that important? Because that's how you actually see pandemic strains emerge, where two different viruses co-infect cells, swap out genes, and then create this brand new virus. And so this is why we're so concerned. Has it happened yet? No. We have not seen any evidence of severe illness being transmitted to individuals who work in the dairy area. But that could all change tonight. And that's what we're trying to help people understand, is that we're on a major alert right now for this issue.
What should the country be doing right now to help, to the extent that it can, to help prevent this from becoming something more serious?
Well, this is a lot like going off the edge of a cliff. It's really pretty safe until you get to that last 1/100th of an inch, and then you go off quickly. And that's where we're at right now with this virus. We don't know if we're ever going to get to the edge of the cliff. There is not a lot that people can do as individual citizens. What we need to do is do much more to try to bring the H5N1 situation in dairy cattle under control. We're almost at 900 herds now in this country infected, of which 75% are in California, and it's just continuing to spread. Remember, I just mentioned that issue about the cow udder and how that could serve as the melding pot for developing a new flu virus. It's unacceptable that we continue to see this kind of transmission in these cattle. Much more needs to be done there. We need to be doing more with vaccines. There was a release today from the CDC looking at this case of illness that occurred in the woman in Louisiana. And the good news is that this particular virus looks like it matches up with a candidate virus we have for a vaccine. The problem is there's not one drop of that vaccine made yet. And the world only has the capacity to make about 3.5 billion doses a year, and that's it.
And it's happening at a time when there's vaccine skepticism, despite the enormous successes they've had
Exactly.
with a number of diseases. Michael Osterholm, thanks so much as always.